Hey everyone, how you doing? It is week 5 of NFL. That's right, Wade McElwain, NFL in London. Joining me, Edo Delamonte, Ryan Cull from NFL in London, and Will Gavin also from GridIron. How's your week's been going? Huh? Your NFL? Your choice has been all right? We're talking DraftKings. We're talking when you play in DraftKings. We play DraftKings.co.uk/Hippo in our tournament. 9 players, $50,000 budget. Who is on your team? You got a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, tight end, flex position, and a defense. So who are you going to pick? I'm going to ask these guys. We're going to go through our picks, find out who they have, why they chose that person, maybe give you a few tips to help put your team together. Let's start off with quarterback. Let's start with Ryan. Who you got, Ryan? Who's your quarterback this week?
I am going with my fantasy quarterback in my league. I'm going with Tom Brady. I figure if you're going to have him any game, why not try him in the first one? I feel like this is one of those picks that everyone's going to pick Tom Brady, though. It's going to be one of those guys that it may be like sneaky to not pick Tom Brady, but I think against Cleveland, why not? Let's go with it. Let's see how angry he really is. Let's see the Hulk.
Why? What happens with Tom Brady when he gets angry?
Well, I don't know. Well, as a Bills fan, I've witnessed it 23 out of 26 times.
Well, haven't you guys beat them 2 years in a row, though, now?
No, 2 out of the last 3. But
okay.
One, they were playing Garoppolo, so
okay.
his first game ever.
Okay. And
Tom Brady.
Who's your quarterback?
Carson Wentz at 6,400. He's
Nice.
playing Detroit, so there's no Ziggy Ansah, there's no DeAndre Levy. And so far, QBs versus Detroit, they're averaging 24.56 standard fantasy points, so I can imagine you can change that to DK, but it's still really good. It's second in the league, 12 TDs, only 1 INT. Crucially as well, we've seen Wentz play quite reasonably from the pocket. I think Dak Prescott has actually been better, but Wentz has been really composed. And there's a thing about Doug Peterson. Obviously, he's from the Andy Reid sort of coaching line. Reid was able to coach up Donovan McNabb within 2-3 seasons to be a really good NFL QB. Here, I mean, I'm not getting super excited. I'm sure Wentz will need a couple of seasons to become quite good, but Jesus, it's
he's looking good.
And
that defense is looking good. They're looking all undefeated. And what a great way! It's a great break that they've had too. It was a great time in the break to get everything going when everyone's sort of broken.
Yeah, it's all part of a system. So there's one thing I'd worry about Wentz, which may eventually lead to a drop-off. Not this week, hopefully, but he's bottom 3 in air yards per attempt, so how much the ball travels in the air. It's quite scripted, it's quite careful, so maybe don't expect him to go mental, but for that kind of price, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I hear that. Will, who's your quarterback?
My normal DraftKings philosophy is to not pay big for a quarterback and then spend on my other positions. But I've also taken Tom.
Oh,
we can move on.
That's assholes.
I think it's self-explanatory.
That's fine. Okay, so running backs, the next big thing. You got to have 2 running backs on your team. Edo, start me out with your running backs. Who do you got?
Devonta Freeman at 5,000. So he's playing Denver. I don't like how Denver have played the running back all the time this year. I think they can shut down your receivers, but running backs have actually been okay against them. And Devonta Freeman, there's a lot of variety to his play. He's starting to get more targets in the air as well. Obviously, there's this Tevin Coleman issue as well, which will give him more carries. But he already got the majority of the carries last week anyway. So I think the general vibe is that he's considered the more talented of the two, and that they're the one. He's going to be the one that they're going to go with. So yeah, he's averaging 5.9 a carry. I think having Julio there, having the passing game will keep Denver honest as well. There's not going to be any of that box defending, obviously, because they've got such a great receiver to go up against. And yeah, he got 5 receptions versus New Orleans. He looks really good on those draw plays, dump offs. So even stuff that would have normally gone to Coleman, it looks like Devonta can actually do now. So 5,000, I'm a fan. My second pick, I really hope I don't have to worry about this, but Jordan Howard at 5,200.
Bears.
Yeah, he's a Hoosier and he's playing in Indianapolis. Okay, no, not that. But in normal fantasy, he'd still be an RB2 because he's still a parvenu. But look at that Indiana defense. I mean, that is really tragic. Fire Ryan Grigson. And they haven't been really able to stop the run in years, arguably since Andrew Luck arrived. Well, if not obviously before 2011. But and I'm still thinking of all those times that the Patriots would destroy them in the playoffs by just running the ball. And Dowell Loggins, give him credit. I know his relationship with Johnny Manziel was interesting, but it's his first OC gig. He's shown some variety. Let's see what happens.
Will, who is your 2 running backs?
I'm also taking Jordan Howard, 5,200 against Indy. I was at the game last weekend. I saw exactly how they responded to a pretty poor run game from the Jags, and it was not good. TJ Yeldon had a whale of a time against them. And Jordan Howard looks far more talented than the man he's replaced in Chicago. I think that's his job for the rest of the season if he continues
looking
to
that
play
way.
like that. And then I've taken, and we talked about this when we did the New England preview, I'm stacking up. I'm taking LeGarrette Blount.
All right.
He's so much cheaper than the top-end running backs, and yet, you can get him for $1,300, $1,400 less than your very top-end guys, your David Johnson and stuff like that. And he's been more productive than almost all of them, and he's going up against the Cleveland Browns, who you can run on. It just seems like an absolute tap-in to me.
All right, Ryan, two running backs.
I have completed the trifecta by taking Jordan Howard as well. I'm going to go against Indianapolis' defense. I don't really worry that. But the second one I took, which I'm kind of worried about, he's burned me before, but I think it's my last chance going with Eddie Lacy.
Oh, against the Giants.
Going with Eddie Lacy against the Giants. I think he's playing better. It's just he's got to get those goal line touches. He's got to get that. And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to move the ball. If we saw what Bradford was able to do against the Giants D. And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a great game. I think you're going to see Jordy Nelson's getting a bit healthier. He's getting a bit faster, stretching the field. But the real disappointment is Randall Cobb. He's been really upsetting this year. So I'd like to see him become that better possession receiver, kind of get those third downs, what he was best at. And then finally, just give it to Eddie Lacy, because I think we're seeing that when you're putting it all on Aaron Rodgers this year, he's not the same Aaron Rodgers we've seen. He's not putting up 4 touchdowns. It's because he has no running game. And you have to have the running game. So he has to go back to Eddie Lacy. And this is my last chance with Eddie Lacy. If he does it again, I'm done with him.
I think he might do it again too.
I
like the Giants' run defense.
I like the Giants' run defense too. That might be a tough one. All right, you get 3 wide receivers as well. 3 wide receivers to choose from. Got to spend your money wisely on DraftKings. You don't want to spend too much on some of the big ones. So, Will, let's start with you. Who are your 3 wide receivers?
I feel like you've gone to me out of some kind of irony there, because I've spent big on all 3 receivers this week.
Okay.
All in the $6,000+ range.
Right.
So, starting off with Demaryius Thomas, because actually I think Demaryius Thomas this week is a top 5 wide receiver play up against Atlanta, and he's not priced like that. He's priced at $6,900. Again, you're seeing guys like Julio, who priced in this same game against a much tougher defense, at $3,000 more.
Yeah.
I think Demaryius Thomas is a really clever play this week. I would say that. I picked him. I've then taken Michael Crabtree. He's averaging 22 fantasy points a game at the moment, and I know he had the big one last week with the 3 touchdowns. But Jason Verrett has just been confirmed out for the season for San Diego, and they are really talent poor, San Diego, but only because every week they lose somebody to a season-ending injury, a top name, a top starter. So I like Crabtree in this one. And then I've taken Jordan Matthews for the same reason that was discussed earlier. The Detroit Lions defense is dreadful. Jordan Matthews is seeing almost all of the looks from Carson Wentz. He's seeing so much of the ball. And it might be one of those cases where it takes him 9 catches to get to 120 yards rather than breaking off all these big plays. But I think he's going to see those target levels. Double-digit targets can only be a good thing, and he's there for $6,800.
That's a very good value. All right, Edo, let's go to you. Wide receivers.
I'm going to start cheap for a reason I'll explain later. Sammy Coates, 3,600. Go Tigers. But yeah, he's playing the Jets. And what I found quite weird about the Jets is that, everybody's worrying about Revis, but their secondary in general has looked really bad this year. No offense.
All Jets defenses look bad.
Yeah.
But, I mean, at least the front 7 is okay. I mean, you've got all those monsters, but everything else, I mean, in terms of DVOA, they still rack up pretty well against the run. But once it's Sammy Coates has been stretching the field quite reasonably. I think Roethlisberger will be, back on form. His targets are up. He got 8 against Kansas City. So I've seen Sammy Coates go up against some reasonable defenses so far. So against Cincinnati, good cornerbacks, got 12 points. Against Philadelphia, who have actually defended better than I expected, he got 8. And against Kansas City, against Flowers and all of those dudes, he got nearly 14. So that's pretty good. So 3,600, I had to do that because I went for Julio, and I'm kind of already regretting it because I really had
a lot of monies.
I just, when it's completely on your gut, and you say he had 300 yards last week. He exploded like a madman last season as well. Last season he went up against Josh Norman, who we love to slate, but according to PFF, he was one of their best, if not the best, cornerback in the league. Against Josh Norman, against Carolina, he got 178 yards and 9 receptions. So I'm hoping that he can still do well here. Obviously, Matt Ryan has been playing really, really well. That 2008 draft is him versus Flacco. If Flacco didn't have that ring, everybody would go for Ryan. I mean, I already go for Ryan anyway. But he is also responsible for 3 of the 5 best QB performances since 2012. So I don't know. Let's hope he keeps it up, because otherwise I'll be crying in my whiskey. And the last guy, kind of also regretting this one, Emmanuel Sanders, 6,800, because he's getting a lot of receptions. He's the 6th most targeted wide receiver in the league. And he even managed to get a catch off Paxton Lynch. So, in fact, it's quite ironic that when he was at Pittsburgh with Roethlisberger, he wasn't really doing a heck of a lot. And he goes to Denver, and yeah, he gets the early good Peyton Manning, and then he gets late Peyton Manning, and all the stuff that happened last season, and still managed to get good numbers, which I was quite impressed by. So he's tied for 5th in touchdowns, so let's keep it up.
All right, Ryan, who are your 3 wide receivers?
I went with, for some of the same reason you did with Jason Verrett being out, I went Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper's got 4 games. He's been struggling.
You love wide receivers who don't score touchdowns.
Yeah,
That's what you're saying.
I'm using my roulette theory, where if someone hasn't hit in 4 times, then they're due, right? That's how it never works in roulette. So I don't know why I think it's going to work in daily fantasy. But Amari Cooper is still the best Raiders receiver. Michael Crabtree he's still the number 1. I think Derek Carr is going to get him back on track, and I think he's going to have his first kind of big breakout game because everyone's been expecting it to be this. Like Derek Carr's been amazing, and Michael Crabtree's been kind of really surprising people, and I think this is the game Amari Cooper steps up. Number 2, I went with Sterling Shepard. Because I feel like everyone's just focusing on Odell Beckham Jr. and he's been, even Cruz, Shepard's still that guy who he's in the slot a lot, especially when they get near the red zone. They kind of look for him more than anybody because Odell's getting double teamed and Shepard's always in the seam and he just chucks it up over him. And I think he's a great value. And the last one I went with, which is Jarvis Landry, Jarvis Landry's been one of the most targeted receivers in the NFL this year. He's up there in receptions. Again, he's Ryan Tannehill's main target. He's looking for him all the time. Miami has no running game. They're going to have to throw it. I don't really trust Miami's offense, and I don't really trust Tannehill. But Jarvis Landry, if one thing he's been consistent, is getting targets. And that's one of the things I'm looking for when I do my daily fantasy team, is I'm looking for who gets targeted the most, because that, to me, is becoming what's really important. Like, I've been burned by guys like Mike Wallace too many times who only get targeted 3 times, and you hope they get the big, deep ball. Like guys like Will Fuller, they're not targeted as much. But one thing is for sure, Jarvis Landry gets targeted. He's 7,000. But still, I think it's going to be worth it, especially against Tennessee.
Worth value pick. All right, the last 3 positions you're allowed to pick, and you put in DraftKings, your tight end, your flex position, your defense. I'm going to ask these guys, who's your tight end, who's your flex, who's your defense? Start with you, Will. Name me all 3 of these guys.
I love that you've put all 3 of these in the same time, because I've gone Vikings, Vikings, Vikings.
I know.
I have taken Kyle Rudolph against Houston. Houston are terrible against the tight end. He's only 3,600, and he's scoring touchdowns for fun this season. Who knew? He had hands of stone before this year, and suddenly, with Sam Bradford in there, he's catching absolutely everything. Jerick McKinnon in the flex, only $4,000. I think he's going to be in a lot of people's flexes this week, because with those 2 defensive ends being out for Houston, they are going to just have nothing against the run. And then the Vikings defense, who are priced just inside the top 10 of defenses and are playing like a top 3 defense.
Oh, totally. I agree with you on that one. Ryan, let's go with you, tight end.
Tight end, I'm rolling the dice again with Martellus Bennett.
Okay.
I think, again, I don't think Gronk's 100%. I think Gronk is not going to still come out here and light it up like everyone thinks. That hamstring is still really hurting him, and the one guy that benefits the most is Bennett because he doesn't get the attention, but he's the healthier of the 2. I also like
Your flex, yeah.
my flex is Theo Riddick. The
Okay.
reason I went with Theo Riddick is he's not a huge scorer of touchdowns, but with DeAndre Washington's probably going to be injured, they really have no running backs other than Theo Riddick.
Hey, Zach Zenner.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know who's coming in next. But Theo Riddick's going to be getting the ball, especially when they're playing Philadelphia. He's always in the pass. He's going to get the receptions. If Philadelphia goes up big, I like to have those running backs who catches is because they get the dump-offs when they're playing that prevent defense, taking away the outside. Those running backs just pick up the yards and pick up the points. You saw it with Fozzie Whitaker last week, just catching ball after ball
It's a really good shout against that Jim Schwartz defense.
Why not? Yeah, exactly. Why not go with Theo Riddick? Because who else is going to get the ball? And lastly, I went with the Bills defense, which I think is really underrated. I think it had that really terrible game against the Jets, and then everyone wrote them off. But if you look at them, they played excellent against the Baltimore. They shut out the Patriots, and they absolutely dominated with a defensive touchdown against Arizona. I'm not afraid of Case Keenum. I think the Bills have great corners, and I'm not afraid that he's going to beat them.
I am afraid of Rob Ryan.
The Bills have been shutting down. They've been okay against the run, not great, but again, I think you have Marcel Darius coming back off a 4-week suspension as well. He is their best player, and now that's going to make Jerry Hughes even more dangerous, who's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. And now that Darius is going to be able to take up 2 people, I think you're going to see a defensive touchdown from the Bills this week. I think they're going to have a great game.
You haven't even mentioned Zach Brown.
And Zach Brown
has been
defensive
phenomenal
player,
this year.
18 tackles last week, a sack,
4
2
for a
forced
loss.
fumbles,
Oh,
fumbles. And again, he was just a guy that nobody wanted. He just picked him up off the free agents. And Rex Ryan just finds people to fit his scheme. And I think that's what people forget about him. He's a scheme guy. He's not like a Jim Schwartz who can just he just puts players. Ryan has a thing, and he wants his players to fit his scheme. And if they don't, he gets rid of them, like Mario Williams. So I think the Bills are gonna have a great game.
All right. Speaking of scheming, we got a schemer right here. Edo, what's your scheme? Who's your tight end, your flex, and your defense?
At 2,500.
What?
Playing the Dallas Cowboys, C.J. Uzomah, another Auburn guy. Yeah, he's actually getting enough targets with Tyler Eifert out, and there really doesn't seem to be an alternative to A.J. Green. This is the real issue here, that you look at all the Taylor Boyds and the Brandon LaFells, they're not really doing much for Cincinnati. So I'm expecting Uzomah to get more looks. He's consistently getting sort of, 4 or 5 balls going his way, so hopefully he'll get a few more here. Dallas also rate really bad against the tight end. I checked their defense-adjusted value over average, and they're 31st in the league against the tight end. So I'm really hoping this is a little bit of a gem. At that kind of price, it better be. We go to the flex, who, strangely enough, is actually quite expensive. Melvin Gordon playing against Oakland at 7,000. He's averaging 21.1 fantasy points a week, and his receptions are increasing as well. He had 6 versus New Orleans, 4 against Indiana. Again, I'm worried a little bit about the rushing, because he started off quite hot, then actually played, I believe it was Indianapolis and it was New Orleans, 2 bad run defenses, and was then averaging lower than 3. So I'm hoping he bounces back here, because if we see much more of the Melvin Gordon we saw last year, then I'm in a lot of trouble. And my defense, the Vikes, for many of the same reasons that Will mentioned, and the fact that, I really don't trust Houston that much to put it past them. So there we go.
Well, those are the lineups. Hopefully you've got some information that you guys can use to put in your lineups. Let's take a look at them. Let's go through Edo's first. We got Wentz, Freeman, Jordan Howard, Sammy Coates, Julio Jones, Emmanuel Sanders, Uzomah, Melvin Gordon, and the Vikings. Going up next, we've got Ryan's lineup with Brady, Howard, Lacey, Cooper, Shepard, Landry, Bennett, Theo Riddick, and the Bills defense. Going up to Will's next. Tom Brady, LeGarrette Blount, seeing a little theme here. Jordan Howard, Marius Thomas, Crabtree, Jordan Matthews, and the trifecta of Vikings, Rudolph, McKinnon, and the Vikings D. And then mine, winning lineup. I also went with Carson Wentz. Well, I think it'll be good. I also, the quadruple, I took Jordan Howard. I took Latavius Murray.
Which I would switch him because he's going to be out this week.
Well, you're going to find, because there's a few guys that I chose at the last minute that need to be changed. I took Julian Edelman because I think he's going to totally rip it up against Cleveland. Stephon Diggs, I think, is going to find some room. I took Nelson Aguilar because you're going to spread the ball around. Carson Wentz is going to find him. I think they're going to rip open Detroit. I took Tyler Eifert because I heard he was going to be healthy, and now I heard again he's not going to be healthy. So it's a good thing about DraftKings. You can change your lineups at the last minute. Save me enough money so I could get Antonio Brown, who I think is going to do a lot of damage against those Jets. And I took the Patriots defense because they're playing Cleveland. Those are our lineups. If you want to play, why don't you join us in our Hippo League? Go to DraftKings.co.uk/Hippo. Play against us this week. First prize, tickets to go see the Giants versus the Rams at Twickenham, October 23rd. We're giving tickets away, prizes, Hippodrome prizes as well, DraftKings prizes. You can win big and come see us this Sunday, Hippodrome Casino. We're there every night. Well, when NFL's on. See you then.